Hello and welcome to one of the most popular shows we do here at In the Money Media. Peter Thomas Fornatal back with you. Thrilled to be joined by guys who, while their little nameplate on the screen might be in the wrong order, you don't really need the nameplate with these guys because you already know who they are. Household names in the world of sports and horse racing from NBC. It is Randy Moss and Jerry Bailey. Gentlemen, and I use that term loosely, how are we doing today?
Good. And you got it right, by the way, Bailey and Moss.
Oh, he's talking about on the screen. See, I'm on one side, and you're on. I'm not
but,
Bailey.
But
you're
it's
not,
Bailey
You're
Moss.
not Moss. It's alphabetical order.
Yeah, of course.
Alphabetically. I apologize. We're not in shorts and flip flops. I mean, we're at Del Mar, and we're in this freaking ugly tent instead of being on the beach. Maybe I can just wear a hat backwards, and that'll make up for it. I don't know. Maybe not.
So, by the way, Peter Thomas. So your initials are for post time. I like it.
Post time favorite, PTF. I'm pretty sure that's
And
on my.
We just got the lowdown, by the way, from our common friend Basil DeVito, that your father was a legendary rock and roll disc jockey back in the day.
That's true. You can see, I'll make myself full screen for a second. I usually save this for the guests, but you can see all the vinyl behind me. Much of that was his, spinning it on the New York airwaves from the 60s until his untimely passing just over 10 years ago. But yeah, always appreciate the shout outs for the old man.
That is so cool. That is cool. No wonder you're so good.
We'll talk rock and roll another time, boys. We're here to talk horses, and we're going to do this best bets show a little bit differently than most other shows. We're going to start each of you. Let's say you each pick two races. We'll talk about those. And then, of course, don't pick the classic because we'll save that, the best, for last. Randy, let's start with you. What race do you want to talk about?
Let's start right off the bat. Let's go with race one, day one, the Juvenile Turf Sprint. And I guess the main reason I want to start here is it's a nice segue to one of the two major storylines in this year's Breeders' Cup. Storyline number one, which we'll get to later, is obviously City of Troy in the Breeders' Cup Classic and how he'll handle dirt. Storyline number two is the influx of 19 Japanese horses that were entered for the Breeders' Cup. And we've gone through the videos and we've watched all these Japanese horses. And some of them are probably overmatched. Some of them are really good. And they're going to be key factors in these races. And we're going to start right off, I think, with the Japanese winner. This 2-year-old named Ecoro Sieg is a freaking rocket ship based on the two races that we've seen from him in Japan. In his first start, he just breezes a 2-5 in his debut. So obviously he had a reputation going in. And then they step him up to Stakes Company in his last start, and he doesn't break. He breaks last. And from a standing start, which is how they time races over there, he rushes up on the front end, hooks up with another horse. They open up 8 lengths on the field, and he goes 21-4, 43-4 from a standing start now. This is not a run up. And I timed it. I put it on the timer. I put it on the digital timer to verify it. I didn't believe it because there was an allowance race for older horses, including some stakes level horses that ran earlier on the card that was timed in exactly the same final time. And they went in 22-3, 45-1. And so I thought there can't be this great of a difference, but there was. It was legit. And this horse keeps running. So this is a very, very nice horse, Ecoro Sieg, and I don't know what price he's going to be. I think he's the program favorite right now, but it's a great way to start to talk about, how and they may win the first two because there's a really good filly in the juvenile fillies called American Bikini. She may not be good enough, but they're loaded.
You want to give him an exacta? You have a horse that you really like underneath?
In here, Ecoro Sieg, not really, because he's going to run the speed off their feet. So it's probably going to be something, the temptation would be like Whistle Jacket, but he's speed. And if he can't keep up with the Ecoro Sieg, he's liable to get discouraged. We see that all the time, right? Speed just kills the other speed if it's dominant speed. And then something clunks up from behind and, winds up being part of the exacta.
Big Mojo and Asterius, they're both speedy.
They're both speed. You know, gate to wire, Todd Pletcher came from behind a little bit, but he's got blinkers on. So no, I just bet to win and hope you get 3-1.
What about you, Jerry? You got one for the exacta in there, or a dissenting opinion?
No, I watched the same video he watched. As a matter of fact, I sat there and watched him break down the times, and I was equally impressed. As I call my colleague now, Mas-san, he's the expert on the Japanese horses, so I'm going with what he says because I saw it with my own eyes as well.
I'll throw in Magnum Force as one to be that horse who they might hold up and have make one run and can come fill out the exacta for you. Right. As just one idea in there, but I love the case. And Randy Moss doing the work with the video tapes so we don't have to, and we appreciate it. Jerry, what should your first race be?
I'm going to stay on the same day. I'm going to the fillies, the Juvenile filly turf. And I think maybe the most likely winner of at least Friday, maybe even the whole weekend, is Lake Victoria, number 1. She's drawn the inside, which is a great post to draw for this type of race. They break without a huge run into the first turn. And she was a late addition by trainer Aidan O'Brien. Originally, she was not planned. They did not plan on bringing her here. They had Heavenly Gate, and they had a filly named Bubbling. They still brought Heaven's Gate, but Lake Victoria is undefeated in her 4 lifetime starts. After winning the Moigler stud at Ecoro from slightly off the pace, she ran back 13 days later in another grade 1 in the Shively Park, and she backed up from 7/8 in the Moigler to 6 furlongs. So she's backing up to a shorter distance after coming from off the pace, and she led the entire race in the Shively Park. Grade 1 race, and was very, very impressive. So she has plenty of Euro speed. I think it's enough to be close up in this race. She has the rail draw, which suggests jockey Ryan Moore needs to let her run out of there anyway. And she certainly got the class. Usually, and I think Randy would agree, European horses can come over with grade 2 horses, sometimes even grade 3, but grade 2 horses and handle us pretty well. Not so in the Juvenile filly turf. This has been an American success story, basically because of Chad Brown. We've won it so many times. He has a horse in here, but not a real contender. This year, I think it's the Europeans, and I'm going to go Lake Victoria in there. And she does, listen, this is not going to be a walkover because there's an American horse in here named Thought Process, a California filly. And historically, California fillies have not done well at all. 0 for 58?
0 for 58 for 2-year-old turf horses based in California at the Breeders' Cup.
This one, Thought Process, may be different. And I love her running style. She breaks sharp. She tucked in one time just behind the speed, tipped out, turned for home, and ran him down. Last time, she was right up on him. She could have had the lead at any time, and she looked like a winner the entire race. So enough early speed to get a good position. She probably won't be far off Lake Victoria, and I think it'll be those two turning for home with the other Aidan O'Brien, Heaven's Gate, probably several lengths behind them, but the most likely to close ground late.
And I actually think Thought Process has a chance to upset Lake Victoria. She's really fast. So, but I agree. Those two, I think, are the ones that you key on in there.
We saw that movie last year in the Juvenile turf with the Ballydoyle 1-2. Jerry saying maybe we could get it for the fairer sex this time around. Jerry, I do have one quick question for you because of your institutional knowledge of Ballydoyle and what you were saying before. Is there a particular reason why they're bringing one this good over? This is the best form we've seen in a juvenile turf race at the Breeders' Cup ever. Represents a little bit of a departure. Any insight into why that is?
Yeah, it's a great question because she's actually, I think, the favorite for the Guineas next year. My gut reaction without knowing any inside information is they may have one better in the barn than her or equally as good. And that's often the case with a stable that huge and vast with so many talented runners. But I don't know for sure. It was a surprise to me. I thought they would be very competitive with Heaven's Gate, but they're taking no chances, I guess.
So she went from 7 furlongs to 6 furlongs. And then when Ryan Moore got off of her in the Shively Park, he told Aidan O'Brien, run her back in 2 weeks in the Fillies Mile at Newmarket. He said, what? Go from 7 to 6 to a mile and come back in 2 weeks. And so he brought it up with the boys at Coolmore, and they said, no, don't run her back in 2 weeks. If he thinks that she's going to be that good at a mile, let's just run her in the Breeders' Cup. So
That's great.
But yeah, typically the 2,000 guineas favorites, the 1,000 guineas favorites, the Epsom Derby favorites don't come over here for the 2-year-old races, and they kick our asses anyway. But yeah.
It could be they've just seen all the success that these horses have had. Breeders' Cup runners have gone on to run huge at the 1,000. Look no further than Porta Fortuna. See horses like a Massar, a Derby winner, Cachet, 1,000 guineas winner. There's no, you can, what's the line that Randy, you used before about the world getting smaller? We're seeing that. You can ship to the Breeders' Cup and win English Classics, no problem, apparently. Randy, where shall we go next?
Well, let me give you one more real quick alternate possibility as to why they're bringing Lake Victoria. To Jerry's point, the Americans have dominated this race. And Aidan O'Brien's won it once with Meditate a couple years ago, but they've thrown a lot of fillies in here trying to win, and the Americans seem to beat them every year. So maybe they've decided, okay, we're tired of losing this race. We're going to bring our best filly or one of our best over here to try to win. All right, move on.
Yes, let's do it.
All right, so after Ecoro Sieg wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, and then you try to beat Immersive next start in the Juvenile Fillies by boxing American Bikini and Scottish Lassie and Quick Kick. Then I turn my attention to the next day to a speed-loaded Breeders' Cup Sprint. You've got Raging Torrent, who's got a tremendous amount of early speed. Skelly probably has the most speed of any of them. But you got Federal Judge, who's the program favorite, who's got a tremendous amount of early speed. Apparently, the big beast from Japan, Don Frankie, has sizzling early speed. Straight No Chaser has been in front in almost every race of his life. Mulligan has some speed. Yeah, it's probably not as much as the others. What I'm saying is the last 3 winners of the Breeders' Cup Sprint were 7th, 7th, and 10th at the first call. Just because this is a 6-furlong race, there's usually so much speed in here, it tends to set up for horses to come from off the pace. So I think what you do here is you play tries and you box them around however you want to with Nakatomi, with the Japanese horse Remake, who is a closer. We actually talked to the jockey Yuga Kawada today through an interpreter. That's the only way you can talk to Yuga. Us. And then Mulligan. I think Mulligan might be the best horse in the race. I'm a little concerned that when he's outrun early, that he'll be able to be as effective sitting back 4 or 5 lengths, 6 lengths, and then running him down from behind. But I loved his last race, and I think he's in good form. And I think those 3 are the ones that I want to key on.
When my picks are published for this race, Randy, and people see that you and I have the same 3 top picks, let's hope it's a case of great minds think alike and not fools seldom differ.
All right.
Jerry, I have a jockey question for you about this race. How significant is it to you that Flavien Prat, who could have ridden any number of these, ends up on Mulligan rather than Federal Judge or any of the others? Does that make you like him that much more, or is it just the kind of thing that happens and we shouldn't read too much into it?
I don't know the reasoning behind it. He might have had a commitment on one of them versus the other. But look, I'm not as much of a subscriber to the theories that jockeys don't matter as my colleague here. But in this case, I think he's got a point. I mean, they're a really good horse, and they're all really good jockeys at this point. I don't think it's going to matter.
Yeah, but yeah, as far as like you get to the Kentucky Derby, you get to the Breeders' Cup. Oh, I like this horse because of the jockey. No. They're all good, right? They're so good. So the difference is minuscule, and it's something you can't gamble on because you don't know when it's going to pop up, right? Maybe Irad Ortiz is better than Flavien Prat if a particular type of situation develops during a race, but you don't know if it's going to develop or not. So you just bet the horse and assume you're going to get a good ride. But maybe in a situation like this, if Flavien, who rode both horses, believes that Mulligan is a better horse than Federal Judge, then I think that deserves some credence.
Jerry, do you have a thought on the winner of the sprint?
I like Nakatomi. I think he's a quality closer, and I think that's what's going to take. I don't really know what to make about the Japanese horse. He appears like he's quality, and I know he comes from out of it. As Randy said, we talked to the rider today. He doesn't think that the kickback will bother him because he's going to get a lot of it. But any horse that's made $3.5 million, I'm going to take seriously. So I think he's a player too. But I do think it'll be a come from out of it horse.
What's the next race we're going to talk about, Jerry?
Well, if you have any money left at the end of Saturday, I've got thoughts on the dirt mile.
Tell us.
We're in lockstep agreement on this.
Okay, so there is plenty of speed in here. The horse I like is Domestic Product. I love the way he turned back. Look, even in the Derby last year, I thought he was a little suspect at the distance by Practical Joke, who's I thought was a little distance limited. And so, Chad found out pretty quickly after that he needed to turn him back. I love the turn back from the Dwyer, I believe I'm not looking at it right now, to the Alan Jerkins. That was a very impressive performance at Saratoga. Very impressive. He was last early down the backside. Yeah, it came from the Dwyer, who he won by 7.5 lengths at a mile, to the Dwyer, and ran an extremely fast time. And took all the dirt, took all the traffic, eased out, and ran down a really good horse in Prince of Monaco. Now he stretches back to the mile, but a 2-turn mile, I think, serves the same purpose as 7/8. The speed on the inside at Saudi Crown, the speed of Seize the Gray, both camps want to be on the lead. So you're going to get a hot pace. I just believe he's the pickup horse. Now, he's probably going to be favorite. So what I will tell you is that if you want to make an exacta, I kind of like this horse post time. I don't know that he can beat Domestic Product, but I think he's going to be coming. The Whitney race that he had no excuse in the race, but he was third, beating a couple lengths to Arthur's Ride, who ran lights out that day. And he made a good run until the middle of the stretch. And then he kind of hung a little bit. So the back up to the mile fits. He followed that up with an easier race. No killers down at Laurel, but it was a flat mile. He won by double digits. So I think he's coming into the race primed. I don't know if he can beat Domestic Product, but I think he's going to come running.
We're going to talk about the Breeders' Cup Classic in a minute, but first, just going to give a quick word of business. First and foremost, NBC coverage of the Breeders' Cup. They've got you covered. Check your local listings. Every race will be on Peacock. There'll be some USA in there, and there'll be big NBC. We do know the big NBC window on Saturday starts at 3:30 Eastern, goes to 6. Make sure you watch it. The absolute best coverage out there. I'm usually, even when I'm at the track, I will record the NBC coverage, come home and watch it, because you will learn so much from watching Jerry and Randy and the fantastic team. Also want to let you know, if you want even more on the Breeders' Cup, we've got our In the Money Plus service, figure equivalencies for foreign horses, trip notes, grid picks from the team, horse-by-horse write-ups, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus, the place to go. Just $20, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. Boys, let's talk about this unbelievable rendition of the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Time out for a minute.
Is NBC doing the Breeders' Cup this year?
Yeah. So I thought I was pretty good when I wrote it, picking up on track biases and trends. I've kind of noticed a trend here, which I really like. You keep giving me top billing over Randy. You're always mentioning my name first, so I appreciate that, Pete.
Alphabetical.
See, I was trying to massage his ego by putting Bailey before Moss here. I'm the one that typed that up. I should have known better.
Usually it's Bert and Ernie.
I know.
Right.
That's what we're kind of known as, right?
How about we start this way? Randy, we had a long conversation folks can find elsewhere on the In the Money Media YouTube channel, which we encourage everyone watching, by the way, to subscribe to. Best way to keep track of all our exclusive content. We had a terrific conversation a few days ago. Has your opinion evolved or changed since then?
He's drank the Kool-Aid. I'm like, no, my opinion has not changed at all. I can encapsulate it pretty quickly right now. Aidan O'Brien, in his illustrious career, has won exactly 2 dirt races. One of them was Johannesburg in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile in 2001, I think it was. And the other one was Mendelssohn when he won the UAE Derby. He's one of the greatest trainers in the world. If you gave him a barn full of dirt horses, he'd do just fine on dirt. But he has grass horses to train, and that's why his win percentage on dirt has been so poor. But here's the rub. Mendelssohn, Johannesburg, okay, the two of the horses that ran extremely well for Aidan O'Brien in the Breeders' Cup Classic, Giant's Causeway, who was second, Declaration of War, who was beaten in a photo finish in third. All 4 of those horses had dirt pedigrees on the sire side and on the dam side. Giant's Causeway was actually bred to be a better horse on dirt than on grass. And all 4 of those horses ran, had dirt pedigrees top and bottom. They had another horse called Duke of Marmalade, who was second in the Classic, but that was on synthetic at Santa Anita, so that doesn't count. We're just talking about dirt here. This horse, City of Troy, has dirt extraordinaire on top, Justify, but 100% grass on the bottom. A Galileo filly on the bottom. And when you look at him, I don't know how much this matters. I have no idea. I'm not a geneticist. When you look at him, he looks like a turf horse. He does. He does not look like a dirt horse. He looks like a grass horse. And he's still got that Justify blood running through his veins. How much is that going to matter? Is it going to matter more than his appearance? Is it going to matter more than the Justify, than the Galileo on the bottom side of his pedigree? Because Galileo, make no mistake about it, one of the greatest sires in the last 25 years, a horrible sire on dirt. If all the Galileos had done nothing but run on dirt, he would be unknown right now. So what's the horse going to take after? If he was 6-1, if he was 5-1, yeah, okay, maybe you're tempted. But if he's 5-2, 3-1, 7-2, no, not any part of it.
Let's hear the other side of this coin from Mr. Bailey.
Well, look, I do believe there's a lot of ifs. There's no question he's a great turf horse. The question is, can he make the transition? And we know it's only been done once in the Breeders' Cup, and that was Arcon, 1993. And I rode him, and I mean, I didn't have another mount, so I took the mount, but I believed that Andre Fab, a great trainer, would not bring him over here unless he thought he had a chance. And that's kind of what I'm hanging my hat on with City of Troy, that Aidan O'Brien, the brilliant trainer that he is, knows something that we don't. But even he would admit there's a lot of ifs. Not only does this horse have to adjust to the surface physically and how he gets over it, he's got to adjust to a lot of things mentally. The pace of the race, the almost certain kickback of dirt that he'll get in his face. It's been said that he has a tremendous rhythm once he gets going, but he's got to get to that rhythm. And to get to that rhythm, he's got to break cleanly and pretty fast and have enough early speed to get into that rhythm. Because if anything goes wrong, if he doesn't break well, he doesn't show enough speed, then as a jockey, you're forced to force the horse into the race and ask him for something he's not ready to do. And that's so counterproductive to getting a horse into a rhythm. So there are ifs and there are question marks. I grant you. And Randy's right. I mean, if he was 5-1, it would be a different story. I'm not looking at this at a betting angle per se. I'm just trusting the opinion of the guy that's been very, very successful, not on dirt, but in general.
On dirt, and not on the Classic, but in general,
yeah. Let's talk about who's going to win this race, Randy, in your reckoning first. And then, Jerry, even if you think City of Troy's a likely winner, it sounds like you might have another idea from a betting point of view. What are you thinking in terms of how to approach this from a wagering point of view, Randy?
From a wagering point of view, we both have the same opinion from a wagering point of view. Now, if you're just talking about percentage chances to win, I would think Fierceness would probably have the highest percentage chance to win. But I happen to think Fierceness is going to go off the betting favorite. I don't think enough of these people are going to be betting on City of Troy to be a shorter price than Fierceness. So I'm expecting Fierceness to be 5-2 probably at post time. But we both think that the value is...
It's the horse I would pick if I were still riding to ride, and that's Arthur's Ride. He's as fast as Fierceness. They both have the same, speed numbers this year.
On their best.
On their best day. And that's how I approach these Breeders' Cup races, looking at the field. If every horse brings their best performance, which we know they're not all going to, but if they do, who's the most likely winner? And how does the race set up to either benefit them and to their advantage or disadvantage. And I land on Arthur's Ride because since the defection of Dornoch a month ago, speed horse, and since Skippy Longstockings, another speed horse, decided to go to the mile, Arthur's Ride is really the only true speed in the race. He's drawn perfectly well on the outside to, if anything goes wrong, to recover and still gently get over to the lead without having to run off his feet. And I think he sets a controlled pace, a controlled pace. The last time he did that was in the Whitney going 1 mile and 8, and he destroyed the field. He ran a career best that day. Now, he got roughed up in his following race, the Jockey Club Gold Cup, but Bill Mott had said he thought he ran him back too soon. He probably shouldn't have run him back. He probably should have just trained him up in the Breeders' Cup. Now he's been off since then. And my opinion of Bill Mott, I know him pretty well, is that given the chance to train a horse into a major race with some time off, that's when they run their best for him. He has the ability to do that. So Arthur's Ride not only finds a distance I think he'll enjoy, the most important aspect, he will be on the lead in a comfortable pace, and he's got the quality. And I think Fierceness gets his trip too. And if City of Troy can show enough speed to be third early in the race or fourth and get a comfortable spot, then we'll see what he's got. I think he has a chance.
I mean, maybe Arthur's Ride sets his pace and gets everything his own way, and Fierceness is just too good and runs him down. But Fierceness is 3-1, and Arthur's Ride's 15-1 right now in the morning line. I don't expect Arthur's Ride to go off at that kind of a price. I think enough people share the opinion of Jerry and I that when you have Bill Mott in your corner and you have a horse that should set an uncontested pace and a reasonable pace, that the horse shouldn't be 15-1. One interesting difference, I think, also, I think the horse is flying under the radar because he ran poorly in the Jockey Club Gold Cup by comparison to his two previous races. But if you watch the Jockey Club Gold Cup, Flavian Pratt was on Highland Falls. Jerry's given Flavian a ton of credit for his ride. Flavian correctly analyzed the race and saw, in his opinion, Highland Falls should put pressure early on Arthur's Ride if he could, because he thought he had the ability. He thought Arthur's Ride was the only horse that could beat him. He didn't think that any of the other horses in the field, he thought Highland Falls was better than the other horses in the field. So he thought he could pressure Arthur's Ride and still have enough left to beat the horses behind him. And he was right. He did. Now you're in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and you've got Fierceness that's going to be behind you. And you've got Sierra Leone who's going to be behind you. And you've got the Japanese sort, Forever Young, who's going to be behind you. He can't be as confident now that he can sacrifice a little bit early to go after Arthur's Ride and still have enough left to hold off the horses behind him. So I don't think you're going to see as aggressive a ride. And is Flavian even on Highland Falls?
No, he's not. He rides Sierra Leone.
Rides Sierra Leone.
Who will be far back.
Yeah.
So he's not going to have any impact on how the early part of the race is going to be run. And I just don't. And Randy's 100% right on how the horse was ridden to victory in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. All credit goes to Flavian. And Luis Saez, as good as he is, his strengths aren't the finesse, strategic type of races that Flavian rides. He's a strong rider. He's an aggressive rider. Those are his strengths. So I don't think the post position and as you say, the other quality horses in the race will allow him to concentrate on one horse. He's just going to have to worry about getting his own position. So it's going to be a completely different scenario for Arthur's Ride.
I love the analysis. It's really, really interesting. I take the points, Jerry. What really surprises me, though, is for Randy to agree with you. I kind of feel like there's some sort of apotheosis happening here, because to make the case for Arthur's Ride to win this race, you kind of have to say that a word that starts. Randy doesn't even like to hear the word. It starts with B and it ends with ounce.
Yeah, the B word. Yeah, bounce.
So how do you reconcile your lack of belief that this factor exists, Randy, with the case for Arthur's Ride?
Well, that's a good question.
It wasn't just a bounce. It was a combination of being really pressured early in a race off of a lifetime best effort a month prior. So it's a combination of a couple of things.
Jerry, you're giving him the answers. I'm trying to make him uncomfortable here. What are you doing?
Jerry? Thank you, brother Jerry. He tried to put me on the spot there, and you jumped in and rescued me. No, I do believe that there are. I think it's overplayed. I think it's talked about way too much. too many sheets handicappers, for example, will look at any sort of okay. If I go out and on the golf course, Jerry knows the way I golf, which is not good. If I go out and I shoot a 78, right? If everything goes unbelievably and I shoot the best round I've ever shot in my life, and I chip a couple in from off the green and I make 30-foot putts and I shoot a 78 and I go to bed and I'm so happy. If I play the next day, the odds of everything falling perfectly into place again, since it's never happened to me before in my life, are going to be astronomical. But if I come back the next day and I shoot an 88 or a 90, which is normal, did I bounce? No. But if a horse runs a lifetime best race, when things are just developed perfectly for the horse, right? Right distance, right class, right trip, right spacing, the chances are that he's going to come back and run that lifetime best again next time out are really not that high. But it doesn't mean he bounced and he reacted.
But you made an important point. If you look at Randy's scores, a 78 was preceded by a 90 or an 88. Wait a minute. I'm not making fun.
No, you're
That's
right.
exactly right. So you look back on horses' past performances and or golfers, did he shoot in the 70s the last 3 rounds? Well, if you look back at Arthur's Ride, he had a 110 before that.
Right.
You know, and he had a 101 earlier in the year. So that's his benchmark right there. So he's capable of reproducing that effort.
A lot of what's ascribed to bouncing is simple regression to the mean. I definitely buy that.
Yeah.
And was just really giving you a hard time. I feel like we need to give a more specific call out to Forever Young in this race. Jerry, do you think he's a serious contender?
I do. Look, if he can do what he did in the Kentucky Derby, and many will argue, including me, that he could have been the best horse. Sierra Leone might have been the best horse. Mm-hmm. I give Mystic Dan a lot of credit because he stayed close to a fairly hot pace, and he got it done, even though he got a perfect trip. He took the pressure of keeping up there, and you got to give him credit. So it's not like he just got lucky. He ran a really good race.
And can you confidently leave Sierra Leone out of your superfecta? I would think not.
Yeah, and Forever Young, to your point, took the dirt that day. He had a wide trip, so now he's certainly going to save ground in the first turn. But I don't think dirt's an issue in his face. So I think he actually gets a better trip in the Classic than he did in the Kentucky Derby.
So you throw out City of Troy, okay, and then you key Arthur. You bet Arthur's Ride to win, and then you key him on top of Forever Young, and you put Sierra Leone in there, and there you go.
Little fierceness too.
Maybe Ushpa Tesoro. Fierceness. Yeah, fierceness.
Yeah, yeah. You got to use fierceness.
Yeah, and Ushpa Tesoro maybe to clunk up from behind and get part of the superfecta. Who knows? But yeah, there you go.
And I think we're overlooking a horse named Newgate. I was really impressed with his race in the California Crown.
Yeah.
Off of a layoff since March in Dubai. So the post, I think, hurts him. He's probably going to be 3 or 4 wide in the first turn, which I think he needs everything to go in his favor to win instead of against him, and it could find a wide trip the entire race.
Third or fourth?
He's going to come with a good performance.
Yeah, third or fourth. I don't mind that idea at all. I mean, heck, you can bet for one to run fifth. So one to definitely have in the reckoning. Folks, you've heard what we think. We want to hear what you think. Drop a comment on this YouTube video. Make sure you subscribe to the In the Money Media YouTube channel. For more information, check out In the Money Plus, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. And whatever you do not miss the NBC wall-to-wall coverage starring Randy Moss and Jerry Bailey. See,
first billing. There you go, Pete. And next time we're going to talk a little rock and roll.
You suck up, Pete. You fell into his trap. I'm done.